Beers and Banter, episode 25. Boomers bust. Broncos, could they be the second team in Brisbane? And we've got Black Hops Brewery in the house. Let's do it. Govs, welcome to the Sweaty Box.
Mate, thanks for having me.
No worries.
Big Red.
Dillsy.
Gov, how are you, mate?
Very good. It's good to be here drinking some beers on a Monday afternoon.
What else would you rather be doing?
Exactly.
I've just left myself without one. What are we starting on here?
Oh, well, let's find a starting place. Maybe grab us some beers and we'll crack them and go through them.
Bit of fun.
Bit of fun. That's a good place to start.
You got one of those, Dillsy?
No, I'm just finishing the send it, but I'll have one.
We'll send it and I'll
Then we'll
have
have a
one
bit
of
of
those. So, nearly upgraded the podcast studio over the weekend. Won Lotto last week.
It's obvious.
Solid $10.90 from the newsagent.
Reinvest this week?
Yeah, reinvest. Well, unfortunately, I didn't even cover what it cost me to put the ticket on, but we'll get there. Big weekend of sports.
Yeah, mate, it's finals time. No better time of the year, the NRL and the AFL finals. It's all starting to happen now.
It is a tough year for Queensland. I think everyone from the Broncos, the Lions, and even the Sunshine Coast Lightning got dusted on the weekend.
Yeah, it's been a rough year and not much left now for the Queensland teams. Broncos yesterday were... did they turn up?
No. That was... there's talk already online that they could be the team relocated to Brisbane. That's how bad they went yesterday. I actually threw up a couple of options. What about this? I think people in Sydney, you get online and they want more teams in Sydney. So I'm thinking maybe the Bondi Broncos. Thoughts?
Well, we got 3 Titans fans right here, so as long as one of the teams that relocates is not the Titans, we're probably all happy.
Exactly right.
Roosters to Fiji, and then you can take the Bondi Broncos or the Bunbury Broncos over there in WA. Balmain Broncos.
You might be onto something, Red.
Anyway, obviously I'm poking a little bit of fun. They're probably the most protected team in the competition. Channel 9 executives would have been crying last night when they were knocked out because can't see many Queenslanders watching much footy this weekend, but maybe the South Queensland Storm becomes the team.
Maybe.
Not a lot of sympathy for them online either with the big touch judge mistake on the weekend. Did you see that, Govs?
I did not, mate. I've been travelling around the country flogging beers.
Well, let's get into a bit of that. The touch judges are hopeless. I think they're redundant now.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously all year, ever since the bunkers come into the NRL, there's been controversy and good points and bad points. But for me, when the replay clearly shows that the player didn't touch the line and they've got a good 30 seconds to a minute before the next play, how they can't pull it back.
Yeah, so basically what happened, Melbourne player went up, catches the ball and falls to the ground
off a short kickoff.
Right next to the sideline. His hand almost touches the line, but doesn't. Touchy puts his flag up. By the time the players have walked to the scrum, the whole country can see that he wasn't out. But they just let it be. That
sounds like footy finals week to me.
Yeah,
controversy everywhere.
Well, and to paint the picture, they're down by 6 or 8 at the time. 6 at the time.
To be honest, they'd lost. The Storm were behind, and it was they'd already lost the game, but it robbed them of that last opportunity.
Yeah, but they were down by 6, 2 minutes to go, short kickoff. They should have had the ball back with probably a full set to go. For me, I just don't know why they don't overrule that. I mean, for me, that's why the bunker's there.
I think touch judges are redundant. I know there's we just before we went to air, the Graham Annesley's trying to, put it out there that people need to stop bagging them, and there's been a bit of mental health talk there today from Darius Boyd from the Broncos, and I get that we're all humans here, but the fact that the system is wrong and that the whole country knew it wasn't out by the time they got to the scrum, should have just been go back, play the ball, play on. It baffles me. Have the technology and then they ignore it when it suits them. But
the funny thing is, I think there's a lot of New South Welshmen that were probably happy with the call. being Melbourne on the end of it.
There is zero love for Melbourne online at the
A lot,
moment.
yeah, a lot of people happy that it was Melbourne that copped the wrong end of the stick for once.
Yes, yep. So this
But
weekend,
full credit to Canberra too. They took it to Melbourne. That's the last 2 times now they've beaten Melbourne.
they're looking real good.
Yeah, they are. They obviously go to Canberra now, week off, and go to Canberra for a prelim.
Do they get to play it in Canberra?
Well, I think it's scheduled for Canberra, home
okay.
game. So yeah, I think everyone that doesn't have their side still left in the comps probably cheering for Canberra. All neutral supporters, I think, will be going for Canberra now.
So the Eels go to Melbourne this week.
Eels play Melbourne and Rabbits and Manly.
Rabbits Manly. That'll be interesting. So, Govs, bit of fun. Give us a bit of a story behind this one. What are we drinking here?
Yeah, mate. So this is a beer that we just recently released. It was our last limited release, monthly limited release for the year. So a bit of fun is a beer that has made a bit of a comeback. It was a beer that we released many, many years ago, back before we had our own brewery. And it was a little bit of a mistake gone right. So it was one of the first batches of pale ale that we ever brewed, and we accidentally double hopped it into the whirlpool, and she came out a little bit too bitter. So we couldn't sell it as a pale ale. It was pretty strong. It was quite intense, and but we actually started to fall in love with it and really, really enjoyed the taste. And we started giving it out to a few of our mates around and kind of told them what we did. And one of them said, "Oh, it sounds like you guys had a bit of fun." And I don't know if you realise, but that's actually like a killer name in our industry. So we thought we'd release it under that name, and a couple of years later, we decided to bring it back.
That's 1.7 standard drinks. So you're in an Uber, big guy, on the way home.
Yeah, she's a big one. So this is it's a double dry hoppy Australian pale ale. So yeah, 5.7%.
It goes good.
Yeah, it's a nice beer. Does the black? I noticed we got some lined up here with obviously a normal silver but the black can. Does that mean anything?
So the black can. So we've got black cans and black lids and some silver lids there as well. So the black can is our staple across the range. We've got some black lids there that we use for our limited releases.
Okay.
So they're a little bit special. They look a little bit tougher.
They look good. Why cans?
Why cans? I mean, it's a really good question, and there's a number of answers to that. Firstly, to do with the integrity of the beer and how cans actually have the propensity to protect beer better and store beer better, because obviously they protect against light first and foremost. They can create a good seal, so they're good at keeping oxygen out. They store really well. They're environmental. You can take them on planes. You can take them to festivals.
Yeah.
But I think the number one thing is they're just popular.
Yeah.
There was a big shift from bottles to cans about 5 years ago, and now it's kind of almost strange to drink out of a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, you notice a lot of the craft beer companies now doing cans.
Absolutely, and a lot of the big guys are moving to it as well. So yeah, it's good for the beer. It's good for the environment.
You guys are only cans and obviously kegs.
We're purely cans now. We do glass growlers and squealers at the tap room.
Yep.
But we went out of bottles like 3 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, righto. Well, I'm going to sip on this for a bit longer. You got any AFL news, Dillsy?
Mate, obviously Brisbane Lions, talking about Queensland teams, the Lions are now gone after a 3-point defeat on the weekend to Greater Western Sydney.
I thought there'd be more people. It seemed like there was a few empty seats in the crowd.
Definitely compared to the week before.
Yeah.
Obviously Richmond have got a massive supporter base, so
Yeah.
There would have been probably 40% of supporters a week before were Richmond supporters.
Yep.
GWS are a new team, obviously from Sydney. Probably definitely not as many supporters as Richmond, so hence probably why the crowd was down a little bit, but still a pretty good atmosphere. I don't know what the exact number was, but Brisbane took it to them. They started off slow. They were down by 4 goals. GWS kicked the first 4 goals, and then they fought back, hit the lead, and then sort of went back and forwards in the last quarter, and GWS got them with about a minute to go. And disappointing to go out in straight sets for the Lions, but I think they've really got something to build on for next year.
They'll get better from that. losing a year, like all those blokes have got a lot more experience now. They know they can win footy, and now they've had a taste of semi-finals footy. I would say look out 2020, they'll go good.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably 12 months ahead of where everyone expected them to be. I think everyone knew they were on the way up, but they got to, second on the ladder, probably earlier than what everyone expected to. So they'll definitely be around next year and one of the teams to beat.
What about, what's old mate's name that's in trouble again with the judiciary there?
Toby Green.
Yeah.
Eye gouging.
Out. Grub.
Well, Lockie Newell, who was the player that was attacked, has actually come out and said that it wasn't the eye region, so that may help him. Wasn't the eye region, yeah.
Righto.
So he's gone into bat for Toby. So he may get off. I mean, he's one of their best players, so GWS will definitely be hoping that he's there this week when they take on Collingwood.
Yeah, righto.
And then Richmond Geelong in the other prelim this week. So the AFL's a week ahead of the NRL, obviously, with...
So the first time in a few years that we're not going to have
they normally
grand
play
final weekend.
back-to-back weekends, but that's good. It means you get to have 2 big weekends in a row.
Yeah, fair enough.
Plenty of this stuff over a couple of weeks in a row.
Who do you reckon? You got Pies versus GWS, Geelong, Richmond. Who's in the GF?
I think Collingwood, Richmond, which would be massive for Melbourne. I mean, they're the biggest clubs in the competition.
You won't be able to get a ticket to the final.
It'll be 100,000 plus.
It's a big UFC same weekend in Melbourne, which I don't know whether that's strategic from them or...
I think the AFL final might be a bit bigger than that.
Yeah, but I don't know whether they've done it on purpose to get the flow on. Can you imagine spending the day at the footy and then walking from there to Marvel and into the UFC? That'd be pretty cool.
You'd have to have some deep pockets to afford both of those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the UFC, they won't miss you with a ticket.
Big crowd. Adesanya, Whittaker, that one will be.
Okay.
Probably one of the
Can't
biggest.
wait.
Probably one of the biggest martial arts events Australia's seen, I would say, for the title.
Yeah, so 4 teams left in the AFL, so be interesting to see what happens this week.
Yeah, righto. Ashes. We've got it. We've won the urn or retained the urn. Felt a little bit hollow waking up this morning.
Retaining is not the word we wanted to wake
Doesn't
up
feel
to.
the same, does it?
No, not when we knew we could have got it.
Yeah, bowling first. We won the toss and bowled. I was scratching my head. I feel like that was protecting Warner. You know, what was going on there?
So I heard Langer come out and say that he was actually protecting the bowlers, so they didn't have to do too much of a workload, which didn't make sense to me.
Make sense.
But
how about you give them a day's rest by
that's
batting?
what I would have thought. Yeah. Anyway, it turned out it was the wrong decision.
You can't expect Steve Smith to make back to back to back to back to back, so he didn't score as big. Matty Wade made some runs overnight, which was good.
And obviously Warner failed again. I mean, it's
Does he play?
surely
play
his
the
time's
summer?
done now.
I reckon he gets an innings. I reckon he'll play the first. Well, he'll get 2 innings.
So the next time they play a test is in Australia.
Yeah, November, Pakistan versus Pakistan. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean he might get a crack at a shield, not a shield game, but a trial game or something beforehand maybe.
Now Tim Payne has done what Ricky Ponting, Michael Clark, and Steve Smith couldn't, and that's retain the Ashes or win the Ashes on English soil. In saying that, how long has he got as captain, realistically?
Wow,
he's not really making runs, and he's not the best wicket keeper in the country.
No, but I mean, who do they bring back in? Is there been enough time with Smith out of the scene for now bringing him back in, or
100% he's my captain. We probably sat here and would have roasted him when it happened, but 100% he's the backbone of that team. He's at first slip, so how much of the decisions is he already making? 100% for me, Steve Smith's the captain. Now there are people be blowing a gasket and they just unfollowed us, but I get it. That crew caused a lot of heartache or a lot of embarrassment for cricket fans. But in all honesty, captains of other countries have done way or just as bad, and copped a 1 or 2 week ban and back at it. So
yeah, and they definitely copped it pretty hard.
Yeah.
But they've also look at Steve Smith. He took it on the chin and really earned his way back into that team.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing too is you look through the current 11 or 12 players. There's no other standout captain in waiting of the current squad we've got.
Someone said Labuschagne maybe, but he's brand new in there.
Yeah, and he hasn't captained a state or any other form of.
What about one of the big bowlers?
Yeah, maybe like a Cummins possibly, or
Because you also need a captain that the country can get behind and get excited about.
Yeah.
And I think what Steve Smith has just done in this Ashes series is, if that hasn't won everyone over, that was sort of on the other side of the fence, I don't know what else he has to do from a performance point of view. It's second to none, that series he's had just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think Payne is his day. The Australian summer might be the end for him.
They might give him another summer just as a bit of a thank you.
Yeah, and you've got Carey sitting there as a backup keeper, who I don't know if he's as good a keeper, but I think he's definitely as good a batsman.
Well, you got Matt Wade.
Wade, yeah,
actually
again,
making runs.
Yeah, play him as a keeper. He's a little bit older too, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Righto. Do we want to? How you guys going on those?
It's
All
not
right.
bad, this one.
I'm good, but if you want to crack some others and we can try some different beers.
I think we
chat about
should.
them.
We should. I'm pretty keen on hearing, having a taste of this eggnog stout. Is that where it all started?
It is. So that's one of the reasons I brought it along today for you guys to try. That was the beer that started Black Hops. So I rewind about 5 years ago. It was myself, Dan and Eddie in the garage doing our first ever homebrew. And in saying that, I'd been a commercial brewer at that stage for about 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So while brewing wasn't new to me, home brewing was. And my first one happened to be the eggnog stout. And then before we knew it, we just kind of got really carried away.
Now, what did you do? What led you to brewing, to be a professional brewer? Did you go to uni or did you straight out of
kind
school?
of. I didn't follow the cookie cutter path that most brewers have from kind of my generation, because there wasn't a lot of training or study resources or opportunities available back then. There still kind of isn't, but it's definitely getting a lot better. So I had no idea that you could be a brewer when I was in high school. I wish they'd mentioned that one, and I probably would have dropped out. So yeah, I kind of coaxed through my early 20s doing
just drinking instead of brewing.
Yeah, doing every job under the sun and getting bored pretty quickly of each one of them, and all the while having this kind of passion for good beer. And it wasn't craft beer back then; they kind of called it boutique beer.
Yeah,
that was a bit wanky, but I just called it good beer, and I couldn't get enough of it. And it actually wasn't until I went on my first ever brewery tour, which was at Burley Brewing here on the Gold Coast.
Yeah,
back 2006, 2007, when they first started, and I just remember going on the tour, and Brennan was there giving it, and I was kind of listening to the story and watching the brewers walking around doing brewing jobs, and that's when it kind of dawned on me that this was a career opportunity, and you could actually go to work and make beer every day.
Yep.
So I went home and wondered, how the hell do you get into this? And so there was no TAFE course. You can go to uni. There was a couple of uni degrees. I think one was in Ballarat and one was in WA, but it was more of like a food science postgrad.
Yeah.
Wasn't like a craft brewing course. So I just did whatever I thought I could, and I went to the library the next day and I hired out every book on brewing, and just kind of taught myself as much as I could, and put my resume in at every little brew shop and microbrewery in the land, and I scored a job at a little microbrewery here on the Gold Coast. It was called You Brew It back in the day.
Yep.
So I started out there just kind of sweeping floors and pouring beers, and they eventually kind of showed me how to brew, and I went on to manage that place, and then I did some further study online through an international college to get some more brewing kind of experience and knowledge, and then I eventually went on to work at some bigger breweries, and Burley Brewing was one of them.
Yep.
And then I was at Fortitude Brewing up at Mount Tambourine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be there.
Yeah, so that's that was where the spark for Black Hops kind of started. We were up at the bar up at Fortitude drinking a few beers, and Eddie started telling me this story about a beer that he had an idea to brew, which was this Irish stout with cinnamon, vanilla, and nutmeg, and he called it the eggnog stout.
Oh, really?
And I was, we were enough beers deep at that point that, we were full of courage. And I said to him, you know what? I've literally just built my first ever homebrew setup, and I'm just kind of looking for something to make. Let's come back next weekend and brew this eggnog stout. So sure enough, we did.
So it reads a dry Irish stout with subtle notes of nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla bean, and French brandy. It showcases a mild bitterness through the use of roasted barley and a generous late hop addition. Our first commercial release and a beer that is close to our heart.
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
We better have one on
Get
that
into
note. So this literally comes from the backyard.
Oh, get that
It
in.
did, yeah. So it was the first beer we ever brewed in the garage.
Oh,
And I'm glad to say we've been brewing it ever since.
that's great.
And is it still the same recipe from day dot?
It's essentially the same recipe. It's it's scaled up. The first batch we did was 15 litres, and now we're brewing 2,500, 3,000 litres of it at a time. So
That's nice.
That's real good. I've never been into dark beers, but that's sensational.
that was kind of when we first brought it out. When we did our first commercial batch of this beer, it was over summer in Queensland, late 2015, and as you can imagine. Back then, there wasn't a lot of stouts in summer, particularly in Queensland. So we wanted to bring out a dark beer that people wouldn't be too intimidated by, and one that you could have a couple of schooners of.
Eggnog stout. I like it. It's a nice beer.
So that's available through bottle shops or just at the Black Hops?
We sell it out of our tap rooms. There are
Yep.
some bottle shops that stock it. It's not in every outlet under the sun.
So can people walk into Black Ops and just buy a carton? Is that good for you guys commercially to obviously selling direct? Or?
Absolutely. It just gives us a great opportunity to talk face to face with our customers, and not just our customers, but our locals, and build that kind of relationship and community. So we're not just a business making a product. We're actually part of Burleigh and part of the Gold Coast.
I'm really glad you come on. I guess the origins of this show, Dylan and I used to work together, and we were driving around the car, spent way too much time together. Obviously, Dillsy's got a bit of a sporting background. I like talking about sports. But what we're really passionate about is the Gold Coast, and it really irks us. And you said you're a Titans fan before we got started. It irks me that the rest of the country thinks the Gold Coast is this wasteland. And I even saw it online. Oh, the Gold Coast is like Las Vegas. It's a party town, and there should be no sports teams there. It irks me. I think this is. There's only one place I like more than the Gold Coast, and that's probably the sunny coast, and that's because that's where I was born up there. And it's one of the greatest places on earth.
I definitely know what you mean. Yeah, I was born and bred on the Gold Coast, and there's not many of us like that. Growing up, people would be like, "Where are you from?" And I'd say the Gold Coast, and they'd be like, "Oh no, where are you actually from?"
Yeah.
And a lot of my mates, after high school and uni, they all moved away because there wasn't a lot of job opportunities back then.
Yeah.
So we were losing all of our youth and using all of our skills. And we did have that kind of reputation from the rest of the country as a tourist destination and a bit tacky. And it's kind of particularly for us, worked in our favour because we've had a little bit of an edge and a head start because we know how good it is here.
Yeah.
And we know that once you come here and once you experience it, it's a beautiful place to live. It's a beautiful place to have a business.
The funny thing is there used to be a sign at Tugun, and it was ticking over constantly of people moving to the Gold Coast, and it was 1,500 people a week or something were coming. It's the greatest place in Australia to live. Now, I get it. There's certain aspects of the Gold Coast that aren't great, but as far as a sporting team destination, to be honest, I reckon we've got the best beers, yourselves included, within 10 k's of here.
Absolutely.
In the country, some of the best, maybe Stonewood's a little bit further away, but
we call Stonewood part of the Gold Coast, and we talk in that regard, just because they're the original gangsters of this industry.
Yeah,
they're just down the road.
Yeah, so
so
where I was getting to is that this podcast was sort of born out of a love for the Gold Coast and wanting to highlight, you know, the amount of athletes that are on the Gold Coast, but then the amount of cool people that base themselves on the Gold Coast, and yourselves included. You guys you're hitting very, very, very high, and I've sort of, it's good to notice, and I really appreciate you coming in. So it's been good, and that's what I want to do more, is really pump up the Gold Coast, because I think it is one of the best places in Australia.
So you talked earlier about I can't remember what you call them, but you basically where you can go and taste the beer or go and buy the beer. What do you got?
Our tasting rooms, yeah.
Tasting rooms, yeah. So there's Burleigh and
yeah. So
Waters.
we've got 2 sites on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Burleigh, which is where we started, and our original site. So it's and it has a tasting room or a tap room attached to it. So
tap room, that's what I.
Tap room, tasting room. So you can go in there. We've got 14 beers on tap. You can sit down, you can have a beer, you can get a tasting paddle, try a few. We've got takeaway options. There's different options for food and eating and all that stuff. We don't have a kitchen on site, but we do some deals with the businesses in the area.
Yeah.
And we get food trucks in. And we've just 7 months ago opened a new production facility up in Big Red Waters, which kind of mirrors the plan for Burleigh. So it's got the same facilities, and but it's just much, much bigger.
Cool. So at the moment, you only export locally or Australia wide, or
so as of this weekend, we're now distributing from North Queensland right down to Tassie.
Yeah.
So I just got back from Tassie yesterday, where we did our first launch down there. So we've got a bunch of bottle shops and venues online. We also go down to South Australia, right up through Victoria, New South Wales.
So for all our South Australian fans, where can they go and get some Black Hops cans?
You can jump on our website. We do have a beer finder app, which kind of you type in your location and it'll bring up the local venues that have our beer.
Yep.
And it's usually pretty up to date.
Cool. I like it. How hard was it to go that step from you were obviously you're a professional brewer, but that step to go out of your comfort zone and go, right, I'm going to leave this safe job, and we're going alone.
It was pretty easy, actually, and I think I don't know how much of that came down to naivety.
Yep.
But I've always been a risk taker and a little bit reckless, but also I'd been in the profession for long enough that I had a confidence in what I did, that I could brew beer, and I saw the insides of how a brewery ran, and but also I had that support with Dan and Eddie bringing a lot more to that table. Because making beer is the first step. Yep.
And what's the hardest thing? I've been trying to listen to a few. You guys have got your own podcast series, so give them a plug if you like. But I've been trying to listen. Is the hardest thing about obviously being successful that now you've got to staff your operation? What's the hardest thing about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the hardest part about running a business is the running the business side of things.
Yep.
And it's something that every small business has in common, and that's something we've kind of been able to engage with our customers and our followers through our podcast. Is that running a brewery is hard, but it's as hard as running any small business. You've got finances to consider. Breweries are a very capital heavy industry. We have to spend an incredible amount of money to build the equipment to make the beer that we do.
No doubt.
Is it a golden age for craft beer? Is it?
I think it absolutely is. I mean,
because like you said, when I first started drinking beer, it was like 4X Gold or VB.
Yeah, I think we've kind of gone back to the days where every town has its own brewery.
Yeah, which
is great.
Cool.
And we could kind of see that consumer direction happening outside of beer.
Is that very like an English thing? Like every pub had basically its own little brewery?
Yeah, I think it's got to do with people are now they're kind of getting disconnected to big corporations, and they're looking for local connections. And you look at farmers markets and butchers and bakers now; they're everywhere, and people thrive on it because they know where the product's coming from, but also they have this connection with that source, and that's really important for them. So that becomes harder because you not only just have to market a product and sell it to someone, you've now got to live up to and fulfill their expectations and put yourself on the label as much as the product.
So it is a bit of a golden age for craft beer, but is it also making it harder now? Like, so not only are you competing with the big multinationals, but you are competing with a lot of craft beers like that. You know, like you said, every town's got its own brewery now, but you guys are penetrating well. So you're obviously doing a good job of it. But is it a hard slog?
Absolutely, and I think competition is good for every industry, and it's great for consumers.
Yep.
For us, like when we first started, I think there was 300 odd breweries in the country. That number is more than doubled in the past 4 years. So the competition is getting tougher, but we thrive on that. We're very competitive in our nature, so it makes it a lot harder for us to do what we do, but we love it that way.
You catch any of the basketball over the weekend?
Not a lot.
I'm a bit of a bandwagon guy. Whatever's going, whatever Australia's competing at, I like to get on board. And I said to Dillsy a couple of weeks ago, I said the Boomers are looking good here. We're going to win. He said, "No, USA all the way. They're going to."
Got that wrong, didn't
They've gone about 7th. The Aussies were 1 point, or they're basically one shit call from the gold medal, silver medal match. So much so that Andrew Bogut was making.
He was
blowing
happy.
a gasket at the end of that Spain game and then insinuating that maybe FIBA might have influenced that decision.
I watched that semi-final.
Yeah.
And I was into it. And they definitely had a few calls, right or wrong. We're probably a little bit one-eyed being Australians, but definitely had a few calls that could have gone either way that went against us. But, you know, that semi-final, you're talking about being 1 point away. They led for 90% of that game. It wasn't until the last
both of those
minute
games
that Spain actually hit the lead. And then even right at the death, Paddy Mills had a free throw, which would have put them one in front with...
Well, we were one in front before Bogut was called for a foul. So
yeah, but then Paddy Mills had a free throw to go one. We were down by one.
Oh, yeah.
He tied it up, and then had the second free throw to go one in front with 5 seconds. Missed it, and it obviously went into overtime and then a double overtime. But
I think they can hold their heads up. They're certainly, mixing it. It's not just the 32 teams that were there. I think there's over 100 countries that start that process to get there. My concern is I don't think you ever get the USA that soft. I think come Tokyo 2020, that if you watch some of the talk shows in America at the moment, they're not happy that, that they're embarrassed basically. That used to winning that it's a foregone conclusion, and all of a sudden they've come 7th. I don't think you'll see a second-rate USA team ever turn up to one of those comps again.
Arguably, it wasn't even second-rate. It's probably their third best side.
I don't think you'll see LeBron and Kevin Durant and those guys, but I think you'll see, some of that next level down. But
and I think you'll also see a lot more support and interest in the NBL.
Yeah,
people have
absolutely
kind of forgotten that we're actually pretty good at basketball.
Well, I mean, you look at even go back to Ben Simmons, like an Aussie guy, number 1 draft pick 2 years ago. Bogut, Ingles, all these guys now playing the NBL, which are doing really well. And on the back of that, the NBL has definitely grown, like you say, and I think it'll continue to grow.
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll be able to keep some of those better players. And
and obviously Bogut coming back at the end of his career last year, although he went back to the NBA, but him coming back and guys like Joe Ingles and these other guys that will probably finish their career in the NBL.
Hopefully next year we'll have Ben Simmons at the Olympics and maybe Dante Exum and some of those guys. So we can only hope that we build from here and they mix it up.
You look at that World Cup side, if you put Simmons into that, and then the rest of the guys obviously perform what they did, it's Simmons in that team is a massive bonus.
Huge.
So what did we finished 4th in the end, yeah?
Yeah.
Just missed it.
But we were free throw from gold.
Yeah, or playing for gold, yeah.
Would have smoked Argentina. They got done by 20 by Spain.
So Spain first, Argentina second.
Yeah. And we'd already beaten France, so it was unfortunate to lose. I think, the Aussies spent a lot of energy in that semi-final. But good on them. I'm happy, but so close.
Yeah.
My missus is from Argentina, so she's stoked.
Take it back.
I'll take it back. But they had 0 NBA players, I believe.
Oh yeah, they were going off more than we were.
Yeah.
About getting into the
huge for them.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm looking at these beers. What are we going to go next?
I think if we'll go to the Hornet. And then we can finish up on the smoke screen.
So take us back to early days. Obviously, 3 guys, 3 mates in a shed on the piss came up with the idea. Where's Black Hops now? How many guys employed? Obviously, we've spoken about where you sell it, but what size business now?
So we started off just the three of us, and we kept it that way for probably the first year and a half, 2 years, and that was just because we couldn't afford to pay ourselves, let alone anybody else. And then we started to kind of crack into some bigger markets. The business started growing. We started to get some key staff members on side. Because we were doing absolutely everything. We were doing the sales, we were doing the marketing, we were doing the manufacturing and the deliveries, and we just got too spread out.
Yeah.
So we got some really good players on team, and we're now, I think we're approaching 30 staff.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. And what year, well, you said earlier, but what year did you kick off?
Well, it was 2014 we did our first homebrew. So 2015,
4 years old.
We started contract brewing, and we opened our first site in 2016.
That's awesome.
How long's the process from ingredients to the keg or the can?
Depending on the beer, but you're looking around about 3 weeks.
Yeah, righto. That's quicker than I thought.
So there's some beers that go a little bit quicker.
Yep.
Some beers can go a lot longer. You can get your real specialty style beers where they're lagered for extended periods of time at lower temperatures, or even beers that are aged in barrels and things like that. So this is our Hornet. This is our IPA that we're drinking right now.
So what makes it an India Pale Ale as opposed to a Pacific Pale Ale or just a Pale Ale?
So the India Pale Ale is a style of beer that was kind of first used in context a few hundred years ago. We're talking like the colonial settlement times of England in India.
Yep.
So that's where the India part comes from, and so the legend goes is England was ferrying beer down to the troops in India, and to kind of survive those long, harsh journeys, they needed to boost the alcohol, and they also threw some extra hops in there for added measure to help keep the beer happy and healthy for the long journey.
Probably in wooden kegs back then, I guess.
Yeah, so a strong beer. It was quite bitter. It's very different to the modern IPA that we drink now, which is kind of brewed a little bit more deliberately and with specific ingredients for a different kind of outcome. We now drink IPAs extremely fresh, as opposed to brewing them to last longer.
Yeah.
So in terms of like putting it to context, if you took your pale ale and you kind of beefed up your alcohol and you beefed up your hops and your bitterness, that's what an IPA would be.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is our IPA. This is actually canned today. So I bought
straight off the line.
I bought these cans down straight off the line.
How good's that?
So it literally doesn't get any fresher than that.
That's perfect. I'm glad I've just got to walk inside. Mate, that's
nice.
a nice beer. The Hornet. Get that into you, folks.
So how many beers total are you guys currently making or selling? Or
We just in July we brewed our 100th unique beer.
Wow.
Which was a limited release beer that we called Number 100. Very original, and a lot of thought into that name, obviously.
Yep.
But it was there to really put the flag up and congratulate the team and hit that milestone of 100 unique beers since we started.
So how many are those? Obviously, those 100 are not all actively still in production. How many?
No, so like at our tap rooms, as I mentioned, we've got 14 different beers available all the time. We've got different beers at both tap rooms. So whatever's brewed at the pilot system in Burleigh, you can only get in Burleigh, and whatever's brewed in the pilot system at Big Rock, you can only get there.
Yep.
To put it into another context, last year we brewed 52 different beers, and that was just pure luck that it was that number, but it was a beer a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this year we're going to try and beat that number.
Really? So a lot of those beers never make it outside the brewery as far as being...
Correct. Yeah. So we've got two pilot systems at both sites, which we use to kind of have a bit of play around with. We do collaborations and also recipe development, but we're brewing on those like 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And those beers, generally don't make it outside of that particular tap room.
Yeah.
So straight to the taps.
Yeah, and that's, it gives our locals a reason to come back every week.
Yeah.
Because every time they come in, we've got a new beer. And for the guys that live closer to Burleigh, if there's a beer at Bigger Waters that they really like, they've got to go up there to get it.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to make it harder for them, but we're trying to give them a reason to
I've just
visit both
realised
sites.
I've just realised I could walk to the local. So that's
Burleigh?
definitely
It's
on the
very
cards.
close.
Yeah, that's on the cards.
In Burleigh.
Yep.
So for the listeners that to walk into a bottle shop or a bar that has this on tap, which one are they likely to see, or is it?
What's going the biggest?
So we've got 8 beers in our core range, which are the ones you'll mostly see. So our Pale Ale, which I didn't happen to bring today. I thought I'd bring some really special stuff with us for you guys to try. Our Send It, which you guys were drinking when I got here. So that's our session ale. So you'll see that around in most bottle shops and outlets. That's Send It's like our kind of entry level pale ale.
Yep.
That's not a bad drop. We had that
was
earlier.
nice. Yep.
Our Hornet is probably top 3. We also our Eggnog Stout, obviously, and we have a raspberry saison called Pink Mist,
Yeah.
which is part of the core range. So it's just something for people who are not looking for something not too beery. They might be looking for a cider or something else, and this is kind of a different option for them.
I was going to say to you, do you do a cider? I mean, you see that everywhere now, ciders, and I don't mind a cider every now and then, but
You would.
When we
with a straw.
ever since we started, it was probably the 2 most common questions I got asked is when are you going to do a ginger beer and when are you going to do a cider? And I said no for years. And eventually I said, you know what, stuff it, I'll do both. So we actually have a ginger cider.
Sounds good.
We better get one of them.
Did you see any of the fights over the weekend?
No, but I saw some replays that were pretty gnarly.
So Tyson Fury went at it yesterday. You see that one? Massive cut above his head.
Who did he fight?
Some bloke. I don't know.
Some bloke.
Yeah, some bloke.
The Korean guy.
Yeah.
No,
Some
I think he was Swedish. Went the distance, which was surprised me that an unknown guy would go the distance with him. But he had a nasty cut above his eye, and he's basically spent the whole fight protecting it. And he thought it had come from a headbutt. So if it's a headbutt and the fight stops, it's a no contest, I think. But it actually come from a punch. So if it had stopped, he was going to lose his belt and his lineal championship and the whole lot. But I guess when you're paying everybody's bills, I don't think that fight was stopping unless he was flat on his back. But good effort nonetheless, and hopefully we'll see him versus Deontay Wilder maybe February. Let that cut heal. But one of the big UFC yesterday, Justin Gaethje stopped Cowboy Cerrone, which was
he actually stopped, and
Yeah.
the ref didn't.
Yeah, that was. They're obviously mates. So
Yeah.
he literally cocked his hand and was like, "Do I still have to keep hitting this bloke?" Like it was,
Really?
because he was clearly wobbly, and he was just feeding them to him, and he's like, "Really? You know, have I got to keep throwing him?" And he said as much after the fight. He's like, "Mate, he's a mate of mine.
I'm not going to beat.
I don't want to hit him unless I have to." And he'd already won the fight, and he's like, "Stop the fight."
Yeah.
So it was a bit
Wow.
odd. Yeah, it was a shame. I'm a big fan of Cowboy. He's not. He's in the ring every couple of months, which is, I guess when you're at that level, he's a Hall of Famer, but still obviously to make the living, he's in there every couple of months. But
Well, also while we're talking about it, we spoke about it last week, but Mundine and John Wayne Parr's been confirmed.
I'd already confirmed it.
Seabass.
I confirmed it on the show last week.
You're promoting it, are you?
I don't know, but I'm keen to go there and watch Mundine get knocked out.
Mid or late November, I think. So that'll be awesome.
JWP, that's who we're going for.
Yeah.
Local boy. Really hope he smokes Mundine and puts he's world famous in the rest of the world, but does not get the props that he deserves in Australia.
Well, it's got to be Mundine's last fight, surely. I mean, he keeps saying last, but this has got to be it.
John Farnham. Righto. That Hornet is good.
Yeah, that's a nice beer.
That's about all the sport I had. So I wanted to. You got any more brewing questions?
No, what else did you have on your list there?
What's the best thing about owning a brewery? Other than the obvious, like beer on tap? What's the best thing about owning a brewery?
I mean, it's pretty
Drinking
obvious.
free beers?
Yeah. Like I think everyone starts a brewery so they can drink with their mates for free.
Yeah.
It's really difficult when you have a wife and kids and you have to explain that you have to go to all of these different breweries and drink beer and it's called work.
Well, Dillsy and I have sort of been in jobs where what we call work and what other people call work are two different things. But
Surely you got days where you could not be screwed to have another beer. Surely.
Oh, absolutely! Like I don't drink beer all day every day.
Like I would if I had a brewery.
I certainly did in the early days.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty serious ship these days, and there's a lot of work to do. We're absolutely flat out.
What are the HR policies like at work when it comes to obviously?
Oh, if like we still have HR policies, and they're kind of written to be as professional as possible. But if anyone else read them, they'd be like, these guys saying this. Like, what do you mean you can have a beer at lunch?
Are you still on the tools yourself as far as brewing, or you're more in the?
Yeah, I'm kind of on and off.
Yeah.
So we've now got 4 full-time brewers, and we've got like a packaging team that make up our production team.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at the head of that team. So most of my job is just making sure that they've got everything they need to do their job, and also training and quality aspects. But our canning line operator just recently left, so I've been back on the canning line. Hence why I was running a little bit behind today, but I had fresh cans for you guys.
Yeah,
So I make sure that I still
you can be
kinda-
late anytime you like.
Yeah, I still keep my hands dirty enough that I know how everything works.
So how does it? I mean, you said earlier last year you brewed 52 beers. How does the idea to come up with a new beer? Is it just let's take one that we've already got and add a bit of this and add a bit of that, or is it?
We usually don't find that the ideas for the beers are difficult. They come from so many places, and now we've got such a big team. Like we get inspiration from so many different places, and we've got a number of different programs, I guess you call them, that kind of help fuel that. For instance, one of them is like as for our staff members after they've been with us for a year, they get to brew their own beer.
Yeah.
So I get to work with them on brewing their own beer and whatever they want to do. So that's really kind of cool to kind of work on new recipes with staff members.
Did you have a chocolate and coffee stout there?
We do. Yeah, it's on tap at Big Rewards right now. Actually,
I'm in.
Yeah.
That'll be me tomorrow. Can I get like a growler full of that or something?
I'll see what I can do.
That's me all over chocolate and coffee. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I've been fantasizing. I saw that online. I was like, that is just heaven.
Yeah, so we've brewed with a lot of different ingredients. So I guess we're never shy on a new idea.
Yeah. Question I had: if you weren't a brewer and you could have gone pro in a sport, which sport would it have been?
Oh, that's easy. Golf.
Golf?
Yeah. I still might one day.
Yeah.
That's my retirement plan is to be a pro golfer.
You get some tips from this.
You don't want to do that.
So
Much rather be a brewer.
You got a golf story for us this week, Dillsy?
No, I don't.
Come on, dirt on someone.
No.
This bloke's sitting on a gold mine of dirt, just on all the big names across the world.
A few more. What have we got here? A few more Hornets, and we might come up with something.
Went to college with some of the best in the business.
You play a bit of golf, Gov?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So it's the one thing when
Beers and golf is
when I'm not brewing, I'm playing golf.
It's normally a pretty good combination. A few beers and a game of golf.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to crack the. It feels wasteful. I'm gonna have to sit here and slam these all after when we finish, but I want to crack the last one before we've got a series of questions that we finish the show on with every special guest. So what are we going for next? What do we got?
So for the last beer, we're going to try. This is a little bit of a special one. So this is one of the beers part of our Recon series. So this is one of the beers that you can only get from the tap room. So this was brewed up at Bigger Waters. It's called Smokescreen.
I feel like I need to crack this and then throw it at Dillsy.
So it's a kind of Black Hops take on a Rausch beer or a smoked beer. It's beer that is brewed with barley that has been smoked over, in this case, jamwood. So we smoke the barley ourselves with the help of our local cattle farmer.
Yep.
and we brewed the beer with that barley. So I won't say too much more. I'll let you guys crack it open and have a whiff.
I'm triple parked.
Sweet jar, Dillsy. We're gonna have to put the
How much is
explicit
an
sign
Uber
on
from
this one.
Burley?
Oh, mate, I'll shout you. You're gonna have to. Oh, do you know what? I was gonna ask you. Can you put bacon in a beer?
Yes,
That's
that's exactly
so
what we
good.
did.
Oh, hints of bacon. Have you ever seen that Melissa McCarthy skit where she's like in a focus group for like a ranch dressing? I don't know. People at home that have watched Saturday Night Live will get it, but I was going to take the piss and go, like, oh, has that got some bacon in it? And that dead set, that smells so good.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, that's my new favourite beer.
So yeah, it's a really very traditional style out of Germany, and made with smoked barley. So bacon doesn't necessarily smell like bacon. It actually smells like the wood it was smoked over. So
that is sensational.
By smoking the barley with wood, you actually get that real strong bacon aroma.
Yeah.
Obviously, a bit of an acquired taste. But yeah, I thought I'd kind of expand your horizons a little bit today.
That is sensational. That is just... Oh, folks, do yourselves a favour. Pause the podcast. Go and get yourself a can of Recon Series Smokescreen and then hit play again, because this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a nice beer.
I could have that with breakfast on a Sunday morning.
It's got bacon in it.
I often do.
That is so good.
That one's only at Bigger Waters.
Only Bigger Waters, and there's probably only a couple of cartons left.
So when you
Stop
say
it in there tomorrow.
when you say only at Bigger Waters, people can still go in and buy a carton and take it home with them.
We normally put a restriction on how much you can buy in one transaction, just to try and help spread the love.
Yeah,
That's good. All right. So I forgot to word you up that there's 3 questions, but I'm going to get into them. If we could stop the clock and go deeper dive into it, but
That's all right.
it's sort of like, rapid fire. So the first one is favourite place in the world for a beer.
Burley Heads.
Burley Heads.
Black Hops Brewery.
Some of the bars in Burley that have got some Black Hops on tap.
No, I'd be up at on Burley Point
On a point.
Sunday afternoon.
With a few of these cans.
Absolutely.
Ride the Treadley up there.
Yeah, ride the Treadley. Hopefully, like the surf's good.
Let off some firecrackers.
Oh, why not?
You're a local, right? You used to go to point parties for sure. Righto, I like it. Burley. All right, here's next one. Favourite athlete of all time.
Tiger Woods.
Tiger. Hands up, who's met Tiger Woods? You not met him?
Oh, there we go.
You've met him, you bastard. Righto, last one. Any 4 people from history over for a barbecue? So I'll bring them back, alive or dead. Who do you invite and what are you cooking?
Oh, fuck. That's a fucking hard question.
And what are you drinking?
Black
Hops.
Well, that's a no-brainer. It's Black Hops.
So 4 people over history. All right.
Yep.
Let's go. Let's go. Elvis.
Elvis. I like it. That's the first
good.
Elvis,
I
yes.
reckon he'd like some good barbecue.
Yeah.
Who else? Someone controversial. But
Tiger getting the gig.
well, he's still alive. Oh,
Yeah,
anyone alive?
alive or dead.
Oh fuck! Well, then it's let's get Tiger in on the mix.
Yeah.
Why not? So we've got Tiger Woods. We've got Elvis. That's a good mix.
How's the ladies
That's
that are
good.
going to follow this barbecue? Stop it. Behave.
Genghis Khan,
Yeah.
another good barbecuer.
Do you know they say that most people have got Genghis Khan's DNA?
Yeah,
Because they went around raping and pillaging.
it's really odd.
Sorry, just an odd stat there. It's a Joe Rogan fact, so I don't know whether it's true or not, but allegedly.
Yeah.
Was that right? Yeah, I think that's right. They went round and basically doing what they did. They changed, as far as I know, they changed the carbon footprint of the planet by going around killing people. All right, you're at 3. So we got Elvis, we got Tiger and Genghis Khan.
Yep. Freddie Mercury.
Oh, what a combo! I'm coming.
That'd be an awesome party.
Can I
That
come?
sounds like a fucking epic.
I'm in. You've won. You've won. That is the best foursome we've seen. What are you cooking? What are you cooking them?
Well, if Genghis Khan's coming, we're probably cooking Freddie Mercury.
Shit. Well, I don't know what more I can say after that.
That takes a cake.
Govs, Black Hops Brewery, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in.
So, Burley, where are we? What address? We've got to send the viewers down.
We're just down Gardenia Grove in Burleigh Heads. But yeah,
Proper
put it in your phone, put it into your smartwatch. You'll find us.
Socials, you got
Social medias. It's Black Hops Beer.
What was the other one? Bigger Waters. Whereabouts in Bigger?
So we're just on Pine Ridge Road, across the road from the Norco factory.
Yep.
I know where you are.
Yeah, not far down from Harbour Town.
Cool.
And folks, thanks for listening. You know where you can find us at Beers and Banter. I'm going to finish these cans of Black Hops and finish the chat. Thanks, boys.
See you, boys.